What's the difference between casually hearing something and making it a genuine spiritual practice? Between consuming content and committing to transformation? Today's chapter takes us deeper into the mechanics of conscious change, exploring what happens when we don't just listen to sacred stories, but actually undertake them as a transformative discipline. Fair warning, some of this is going to sound extreme, but I'm curious about what the extremity is trying to tell us. This teaching has been adapted for modern audiences, based on J.L. Shastri's English translation. Saunaka's questions were getting more specific. He wasn't satisfied with general principles. He wanted to understand the full framework. Sutha, you who have great intellect and are foremost amongst Shiva's devotees, you're truly blessed. You've shared this wonderfully auspicious teaching with us. But tell me now, O sage, what are the rules governing those who actually take up listening to the Shiva Purana as a formal spiritual practice? Please share this for the benefit of everyone. Sutha settled into his teaching posture, his expression thoughtful. Saunaka, listen carefully to these guidelines with devotion. When you approach this excellent story, with proper observance of these practices, the results are extraordinary, and there are no obstacles to achieving the full benefits. First, understand this. People who haven't received any kind of spiritual initiation aren't really equipped to undertake this as a formal practice. So those who genuinely wish to commit to this path should receive initiation from the teacher, who will guide them through the discourse. Now, for someone undertaking this as a dedicated rite, they should take their daily meal only after the day's discourse has concluded. They must observe brahmacharya, celibacy and conservation of vital energy, during this period. They should sleep on the ground rather than in comfort, and eat their meals from simple leaf plates rather than fine dishes. Sutha continued, outlining increasingly rigorous options. The person who has abundant physical and mental strength may choose to fast completely until the entire Purana has been heard, listening to the Shiva Purana with tremendous devotion and purity. Or they might sustain themselves only on milk or ghee throughout the entire period, listening to the story with joy. They could live on a fruit diet, or take just a single meal per day, or even forgo that, and proceed purely with the listening practice. Alternatively, they might eat havishayana, cooked rice soaked in ghee, prepared with the purity of sacrificial food, once per day to maintain the practice. The dietary aspect should be adjusted according to individual capacity and comfort, but the listening itself must be strictly maintained. Here's an important principle. If greater ease in eating actually facilitates better listening, then the devotee should eat. If fasting creates obstacles to properly hearing the story, then fasting is not recommended. The point is, the listening, not the suffering. Sutha's tone became more specific. The householder undertaking this practice should avoid heavy, indigestible foods like certain pulses and lentils. They should avoid stale food, anything that's been contaminated, and specific vegetables like brinjals, gourds, radish, and pumpkins. No coconuts, garlic, onions, or asafoetida. Absolutely no intoxicating substances and no meat of any kind. But the dietary restrictions are just the surface level. More importantly, they must avoid the 6 base mental states: lust, anger, greed, delusion, pride, and envy. They shouldn't despise learned people or bear ill will towards genuinely virtuous individuals. They shouldn't engage with people during certain vulnerable times, shouldn't converse with those who've abandoned spiritual principles, and should avoid those who show contempt for sacred wisdom, or who are complete cynics about spiritual reality. Instead, the householder should practice and strictly maintain truthfulness, purity of intention, compassion, restraint in needless speech, straightforwardness, genuine humility, open-mindedness, and other virtuous qualities. Sutha's voice softened. Now here's something beautiful. The householder may listen to this story whilst holding a specific desire in their heart, perhaps for healing, prosperity, or resolution of some difficulty. Or they may approach it completely free from any personal agenda. If they have a desire, it will be fulfilled through this practice. If they're free from desire, they'll attain liberation itself. Both paths are valid. This practice is especially recommended for people facing particular challenges: those in poverty, those suffering from chronic illness, those burdened by past harmful actions, those experiencing persistent misfortune, and those who long for children. It's also specifically beneficial for women facing various reproductive difficulties or challenges. Whether women or men, all must approach the story in the prescribed manner. The days of discourse on the Shiva Purana must be considered extraordinarily valuable, comparable to millions of sacred sacrifices. Gifts given during these auspicious days, even if they're modest in quantity, yield everlasting spiritual benefit. Observing these practices and listening to this great story, the flourishing householder should joyfully perform the concluding ceremony, the Udyapana rite, at the completion. Sutha described the formal completion. This concluding rite is comparable to sacred ceremonies performed on the 14th day of the lunar month. Wealthy individuals who wish to secure the full fruits of this practice should perform it with appropriate elaboration. However, devotees of modest means don't need to perform this elaborate ceremony. They're purified by listening alone. True devotees of Shiva are naturally free from attachment to ritualistic displays. After the discourse festival is concluded, the listeners should perform worship before the physical book itself, in the manner of worshipping Shiva directly. A fine new cloth to cover and protect the book should be given, along with a strong silk cord to bind it. Those who offer silk cord and new cloth for the Purana book develop yogic wisdom. In every subsequent incarnation, various valuable objects, cloth, ornaments, vessels, and particularly monetary gifts, should be offered to the teacher according to one's capacity. Sutha continued with the specifics. Those who give carpets, deerskin, cloth, elevated platforms to keep the sacred volume on, they attain celestial realms, enjoy all desirable experiences, dwell in Brahma's region for one kalpa, and ultimately reach Shiva's eternal realm. After performing the worship of the book and honoring the main teacher with great celebration, the scholar who served as assistant should also be honored appropriately, though with a proportionally smaller offering. Food, monetary gifts, and other items should be given to visiting Brahmins. A great festival should be celebrated with music, both vocal and instrumental, and with dance performances. The listener should gradually cultivate detachment, and particularly on the day following the conclusion, they should read the Holy Gita as narrated by Shiva to Ramachandra. If the listener is a householder, someone still engaged with worldly life, they must perform homa, the fire ceremony, using pure clarified ghee to bring tranquility and completion to the practice. The homa should be performed with verses from the Rudra Samhita, or with repetitions of the Gayatri mantra. For in truth, this Purana is identical in essence with that most sacred invocation. Or it may be performed with Shiva's root mantra of 5 syllables, Namah Shivaya. If they're unable to perform the fire ceremony themselves, they should give the ghee offering to a Brahmin who can perform it on their behalf. To correct any deficiencies or excesses in the practice, any unintentional mistakes or omissions, they should either read or listen with devotion to the 1,000 names of Shiva. Sutha's voice grew more animated as he described the completion. Undoubtedly, when done properly, everything becomes fruitful and the results are excellent. There is nothing greater in the 3 worlds than this practice. They should feed 11 Brahmins with sweet dishes, honey and milk puddings. They must also give dakshina, monetary offerings, to properly complete the rite. If they have the means, they should commission an image of a lion crafted from 3 palas of gold. Each pala is about 48 grams. Either engrave the name of this Purana on it, or attach a label with the name written on it. They should worship their teacher, that person of great restraint, with gifts of cloth, ornaments, fragrances, and other appropriate offerings. Then present the golden lion to propitiate Shiva. Through the power of this gift and of the Purana itself, they shall receive Shiva's blessings and be freed from the bondage of worldly existence. When these practices are performed properly, the Shiva Purana yields its complete fruit, both enjoyment of worldly pleasures and ultimate liberation. Sutha concluded with deep reverence. Thus I've shared with you the greatness of the Shiva Purana that bestows every cherished aspiration. The Shiva Purana holds a unique distinction amongst all the Puranas. It is supremely pleasing to Shiva and removes the chronic ailment of worldly suffering. Those who are constantly engaged in meditation on Shiva, those whose tongues sing Shiva's attributes, and those whose ears drink in the stories of Shiva. They cross the ocean of worldly existence. I seek refuge in Shiva the Great, of infinite concentrated bliss. Shiva, whose essential form transcends and remains unaffected by all the three gunas. The three gunas being sattva, goodness, creation, rajas, passion, preservation, and tamas, inertia, dissolution, each personified as Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva respectively. Shiva, who manifests himself both within and beyond this world, within and beyond the mind itself. Shiva, whose form is variously perceived through our mental concepts and verbal expressions, yet remains fundamentally beyond them all. Sleep on the ground? Fast for weeks while listening to stories? Give away golden lions? If your first reaction is, what kind of extreme religious stuff is this? I don't blame you. Honestly, I'm probably never going to sleep on the ground for a month. Fasting and listening to Puranas, that level of devotion feels both admirable and completely beyond my current capacity, or frankly, inclination. But here's the real question this chapter raises for me. What would it mean to approach anything with that level of seriousness? To not just casually consume, but to actually commit. Because when I look at my own life, the things that have truly changed me, not just informed me, but transformed how I see and move through the world. They were never things I approached casually. They required commitment, investment, sometimes discomfort, but always full presence. I've seen this in learning too. When I learned to swim, at the ripe age of 25, I had to tell my friends, hire an instructor, and show up, even when I was terrified. I basically burnt the bridge back to casual dabbling. I told myself and the universe, I'm not just trying this, I'm doing this. And maybe that's what these elaborate instructions are really about. Transformation isn't something that happens while we're half listening, scrolling our phones, or clinging to comfort. It's something we have to choose. Actively, deliberately, sometimes even extravagantly. Two things in this chapter really stood out to me. First, the text offers different levels of intensity. Complete fasting for weeks? Great, if you can handle it. Eating once a day? That's fine too. Can't fast at all because it affects your ability to focus? Then eat. The principle matters more than the exact practice. The goal is heightened awareness, not proving your spiritual toughness. There's no one-size-fits-all path. Second, there's this beautiful paradox. If you have a desire, it will be fulfilled. If you're free from desire, you'll attain liberation. At first, it sounds contradictory, but it's really just recognizing different stages of spiritual growth. Some people need to see practical results before they can trust the deeper process. Others are ready to dive straight into ultimate questions. Both approaches are valid. The practice meets you where you are. I'm still figuring out what that kind of commitment looks like for me, but I'm grateful to these ancient teachers for spelling it out so clearly. Half-hearted engagement leads to half-hearted results. In our next episode, we'll finally begin the actual Purana itself. We've spent all this time learning why and how to listen. Now we get to discover what we're listening to. So tell me, have you ever fully committed to something that truly transformed you? What did that commitment look like, and how did it change you? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments. And of course, don't forget to subscribe and ring the notification bell. Until next time, keep questioning, keep practicing, and keep dancing with the mystic.